everyone! Welcome to the channel dedicated to sharing the profound insights and wisdom of Andromedan contactee Alex Collier. If you're new here, you're in for a journey that expands your mind and consciousness, bringing you closer to understanding the messages from the fifth density Andromedan extraterrestrials. For those returning, we're grateful for your continued support. Before we dive into today's enlightening content, we have a small favor to ask. If you find value in the knowledge shared in this video, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your engagement helps us amplify Alex Collier's message, allowing us to reach a larger audience with these vital messages. We'd also love to hear from you, so please engage with the comments below. Whether it's a question, your thoughts, or even just an emoji for the sake of engagement, every comment counts. We read every single comment, and your feedback is incredibly valuable to us. Additionally, if you'd like to support us further, consider giving a super thanks tip by clicking the heart with the $sign. This small gesture allows us to continue bringing you more of Alex's messages, unfiltered and directly from his lifelong experiences with the Andromedans. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for participating in number 70 and supporting .org and myself. On behalf of myself, James, and JP, we really appreciate you, and we are grateful to be able to provide intelligence for you. We have a lot to cover today. First, let me start off is that we had a question from the last webinar regarding contacting fifth density and how to do that. I do not have an answer for that, as I have not heard from Mornay. So let's just address that up front, okay? As soon as I do, we will address the issue. However, I will do my best to touch on some things today that I have as I'm going through my notes. There's a lot of material there that hasn't seen the light of day. And so we're going to talk about some of that today. I was just having a conversation with JP. The Daily Star, which is a UK newspaper, on the front of its website, there is a video. It's a very short video that was taken by the International Space Station yesterday of a craft manifesting itself in the Earth's atmosphere, a very, very large craft. I think you should all take a look at that. It should be on the front page, and you should see it before they take it down, because no one else is talking about this. There is speculation that this is the same craft that was orbiting Mercury a couple of days ago, and that showed up on the U.S. Navy SESI satellite systems, which uses infrared. So you might want to follow up on that in case you have any doubts about what's going on in our solar system. It's getting very, very crowded, and we'll get into it. We'll get into the perspectives here. Welcome to number 70. You know, there is so much information coming out, so many revelations, secrets that are coming to light, that it can seem overwhelming. And for example, chemtrailing. We now have Harvard and Yale science departments talking about wanting to dim the sun by spraying the atmosphere, which of course they've already been doing for 20 years. So now they're admitting that they want to do it. They haven't quite admitted that they have been doing it, okay? But now they're saying that they want to do it for scientific reasons. So essentially what it is they're trying to get ahead of the fact that it's all going to be coming out. And, you know, they want to try to get ahead of what it is that they're spraying. and how bad it is, but they're going to say it's for a really good reason, which it's not. So that's an interesting piece of news. And of course, on the political scene, it's just insanity. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like a Roadrunner cartoon, and we're the Roadrunner, or we're the Coyote, and we're constantly getting the crap kicked out of us by all this nonsense. It's just craziness. And there's just so much that's going on. I struggle with how to start these things sometimes. But let me just get into some things. So what I want to first start to talk about is going through the notes. I want to talk about some planets in our solar system. And I may have touched upon some of this in the 90s when I was doing the slide presentations. And, that seems like it was 100 years ago. But let's talk about some things. For example, Venus. We know Venus showed up approximately 4,200 years ago. And we're told that Venus is the same size of Earth, which it is. That's bona fide. But then we're told that the atmosphere is sulfuric acid. That isn't true. There are particles, there are elements. There's a tiny percentage of sulfuric acid in the atmosphere. Most of the Venus atmosphere is water. It is water vapor. And I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was 10, 12, maybe 15 years ago. It was, I believe, the last satellite that the Russians sent to Venus, where they discovered that there was a significant amount of oxygen in the atmosphere of Venus. Now, of course, no straight answer, never a straight answer. It didn't talk about it because it didn't fit their narrative of it's sulfuric acid, it's impossible to be there, and the gravitational field crushes everything. Nothing could be further from the truth. There are two very large indentations on the surface of Venus, and they are not craters. I'm just letting you know this ahead of time. They're not craters. They are entrances inside the planet. You see, what I learned from the A's is that any planetoid planet that is 30 miles in diameter or larger, that is hollow, is capable of creating a gravitational field, as well as an atmosphere. Now, that doesn't mean that all planetoids of that size have an atmosphere, but they do have gravity, all right? And that is the result of sunlight and radiation breaking down once it penetrates the planet and reversing itself and coming out into the atmosphere. That is what creates gravity. So it's all connected to the sun. So the other interesting thing about Venus is that it's loaded with gold. It has veins and veins and veins of gold all over the place. Okay, so tuck that away. We're also taught by Never a Straight Answer, NASA, that Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. It's not true. The actual equatorial size of Jupiter is 40,000 miles. The atmosphere is huge, but the actual planet itself is not. Okay, the largest planet in our solar system is Saturn. Then it's Jupiter, then it's Uranus and Neptune. That's the order. Now let's get back to Jupiter. Jupiter's North Pole, magnetic North Pole, points directly at us, at Earth. Also, it's lumpy. The actual physical planet itself is lumpy. And the reason it's lumpy is because it has hills. They're not mountain peaks like we would see in the Rockies or the Swiss Alps or the down in South America. They're hills, literally hills, rolling hills. Most of the hills, or many of the hills, are 5,000 miles high or smaller. But the larger ones are 5,000 miles. The storm, the red spot that we see, the storm, that is one of the highest hills on Jupiter, which is just approximately 5,000 miles high. Now we're told that there's one of these very high, now they're not volcanoes, they're hills, okay? Now what's also interesting about Jupiter is that from the surface to 25 miles, you don't have the winds, you don't have the storms, the turbulence. It's all at a higher level in the atmosphere. What you do have on the surface is you have vegetation, you have water, there is water there. You also have alien artifacts. There are the ruins of structures. There are, Mornay had said it was just equipment. Things that were brought in that were going to be used here that were basically throwaway technology. So instead of hauling it back somewhere else, because the earlier explorers were mining, looking for raw materials, and they were looking for very specific things. And what we would consider valuable, they didn't think it was valuable at all because it's not what they were looking for. So they would just discard the technology and they would allow it to crash on the surface of many of these planets because they didn't care. It was a throwaway, okay? They littered our solar system with some of this stuff. That's what you have on the surface of Jupiter as well. There are a lot of incredible raw materials: platinum, iron oxide, titanium. There's a great deal of that on Jupiter that's in these hills, these lumpy hills of the surface of Jupiter. Saturn, the equator of Saturn, is close to what NASA says, but it's actually 82,103 miles. That's the equator. That's the actual measurement of the equator of Saturn itself. Let's see. And I already told you that, followed by Uranus and Neptune for the sizes. I'm just going through some of this because I thought it would be very interesting to share some of this. So we did the gold. Let's see, lumpy, I got that. There's just a lot of stuff here that I wanted to cover. Let's see. Okay. Earth at one time was very, very similar to Venus in that we had an enormous amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. And I think this is there is a great deal of confusion because the flat earthers are always talking about space is water. Well, that's ridiculous. But they talk about it as if it were the firmament. This would be true of Jupiter, of Venus, as it is today. And the reason there's so much water vapor is because of its close proximity to the sun. But let us just say that we had the technological ability to attach to Venus a tractor beam, and we were able to move Venus's orbit away from the sun, where it wouldn't be so hot, into what we call the livable zone. The livable zone. What would happen to that atmosphere is that water vapor would leave the atmosphere and it would drop to Earth. And it would form oceans, lakes, rivers, etc., because it's not in the atmosphere. And the atmosphere would become clear. That's, I think, where they get confused. Because Earth, at one time, was in a closer orbit to the sun. We've talked about this. And it was moved a little bit further away, which extended our year in our orbit around the sun. This is all documented by the ancients, that our orbit was shorter at one point. It's also interesting to note that the Egyptians have documented the fact that at least 4 times the Earth rose and set in a different place. In other words, where the sun rises now, it used to set. And they've documented this 4 times, which means that there have been a lot of changes. They also talk about, the Egyptians, how star constellations have changed their position. Well, it's not that they changed their position, the planet has changed its position. We've had a physical movement of our physical poles. And this is where you get the sun rose and then set in the opposite of what it is today. The reason for that is because we're seeing many different things today. Many people have noticed the phases of the moon. They've changed. The light is in a different place than it used to be just 3 years ago. The quarter moon, the light is now at the bottom of the moon as opposed to the upper half. We're also seeing where the sun rises and sets in a different place. Many of the indigenous people have been openly talking about this for some time. Most of the Western world hasn't been paying attention. People are seeing incredible things in our atmosphere, in our skies. I saw a picture just yesterday, and I will see what I can do about getting it to James and or JP to put up on the site. But it is dusk, and you have the rays of a sun just under the horizon, shining the light, okay, into the sky, and yet the sun is right there, hiding behind some clouds. So there's a lot of anomalies that are occurring, a lot of very strange things that we've never seen, the double suns, planetary objects. God, they're all over the place if you really look. And we know that we are in a time where there's going to be great change. It's already begun. And we're not only talking about physical change with the planet, but we are also talking about physiological, spiritual change with humanity. And it's very, very important to stay grounded. And what I mean by that is to pay attention. I see a lot of kids with their parents. And the kids, the parents are doing their thing, trying to pull everything together, get the things that the family needs. But the kids have their phones, and it's this. All it is this. They're not even looking. They're like walking like zombies. Okay, they're just completely out of touch with pretty much everything. Okay, unless it has to do with a phone or a video game. We can't do that. We have to pay attention to the shifts and the changes that are happening. Because these changes are here, they're occurring, and they're building momentum. And we're gonna get into that in a minute, but there's a couple of the things that I wanted to cover here. To the 11 or 12 of you that sent me a link to David Wilcox's latest presentation, I think it was in Joshua Tree, if I'm not mistaken, about the Alliance. It was a very interesting presentation. I got a chance to watch it in 3 parts because, I'm busy. And it was a very interesting presentation. I don't agree with everything in it. For example, he makes reference to Ceres, the largest asteroid in the asteroid belt as a planet, and it's really not. It also says that the Nazis built that. They did not. What they discovered was, and I talked about this last week, how ancient cultures, because they didn't have the raw materials to build ships, they would hollow out asteroids or planetoids, and they would convert them into environments on the inside, and on the surface they would put rockets or propulsion systems, and they would use that as their starships, arcs, for lack of a better word, as arcs, space arcs, so that they could move and travel for many different reasons, whether it was exploration, whether they were looking for a planet to call home, to sink their own flag into, whether they were actually looking for raw materials, or they were escaping the war from the Orion Wars. There's all kinds of reasons why people did this, or other star nations. That's what that was, just like Phobos. Phobos is exactly the same thing, and we talked about that in, I think, 69 or 68. That's what Ceres was. All they did was make it their own, okay? Turned it on. There's very large mining ships and equipment in the rings of Saturn. And essentially that's the same thing. Our space fleets, and I'm assuming the Nazis as well, have already been there. They've looked at it, they've taken what they thought they could use, or they tried to. But we're the babies here. We're the newcomers. We're the ones who are just waking up. There are many star nations, civilizations that are further ahead than we are, and they're well aware of these things. And what's new to us is throwaway to many other star nations. Okay. I share this with you just because we need perspective on the history here. We don't remember our history. We haven't been given the true history of our human race, or of Earth, or of our solar system, or the migrations from planets outside into Mars, to Earth, etc. The colonization of moons in our solar system, the mining that went on here, the wars, the battles that occurred in our solar system. We haven't been privy to any of this information whatsoever. And for those of you who are new, I just want to point something out, and that is that the most ancient writings we have to date, that we have access to, are the Sumerian. And they describe our solar system, not only how many planets, but the colors, which ones have rings, which ones are lying on their sides. from the outside of our solar system in. And that information is over 10,000 years old. Okay? So you need to be aware of that. The biggest changes that are coming now is not just disclosure, but it's awakening. If you're listening to the news, which I don't really recommend, okay, but something, you have to know what's happening. You have to know what's going on. And I would never, ever recommend anybody ever listen to CNN. I just wouldn't, okay? I would listen to anybody else other than CNN. In fact, I'd be surprised if they're around in a couple of years from now. They're so bad. They really are. The Illuminati, the world order, they've been pretty much lost their battle to conquer the world, to enslave humanity. But when they realized what they were doing, what was happening, and they no longer had the protection of their overlords, aka the Orion Group, the Draconians, etc., and some rogue Anunnaki, what they decided to do was just to put everything in motion. Agenda 21, the UN 2030, the chemtrails, just all of it. Trying to create nuclear war to get rid of huge portions of the population. What they've done is they've just put all these things in motion in the hopes that it would buy them some time. And you're seeing a lot of this, and a lot of this information is coming out into the open, that that's what's going on. The destruction of sovereign nations by forced migrations of other people who will never integrate into other nations. Essentially what that does is it dissolves and destroys the sovereignty of each nation, its identity. All of those things are being done on purpose. That energy that is pushing this movement will be running out of energy soon because there's no one to continue to feed it. The Illuminati, the Cabal, whatever you want to call them, they're already trying to cut deals because they don't have any protection from their alien overlords. So they're trying to make deals. And the energy that was put in place to move these things forward is gone. But the forward movement of these operations, of these plans, programs, is moving. Okay, it is moving. They will eventually run out of steam. They will not succeed. But it's important to know so that we all don't get into this horrific fear space. We don't want to move into that space. That's why we need some perspective here. We have to stay out of fear because that lowers our vibration. And that's how they've always controlled humanity, is through fear, by lowering our vibrations, by making us scared. And the more scared we are, the more willing we are to give up our free will, our sovereignty for protection. They create the problem, then they say, hey, we can solve it for you, just give away your freedoms. Okay? That's how this plan has been working for a long, long, long time. That plan is running itself out. It's done. It's just these programs that they put into motion are still running. They will run out of energy, not to repeat myself again and again. Understand that that's what's going on. Understand, please understand, whether you can see it or not, there is divine intervention on a spiritual level, on a dimensional level, on a physical level. It is extraordinary what's happening here on Earth. And as quickly as those of us who have been paying attention and see this and have been seeing it for some time, to us, things are moving very, very quickly. To those just now waking up and beginning to see and beginning to understand, or even just posing the questions, what is going on here? To those folks, we have to be careful not to give them the whole enchilada all at once, because it's overwhelming. Many of us we've had years of research, years of experiencing our own personal interaction, our own out of body, our own a dream state where we're on ships and we're being educated or trained, etc., or having seen craft to the point where you know what you know, and there's no longer a doubt. It's just putting all the pieces together. That's where a small portion of us are at. Well, the responsibility that we have now is to be able to relay this to family and friends that are waking up. And we need to be careful not to overwhelm them, because if they get overwhelmed, number one, they're going to shut down. Number two, they may go to a fear space. Because the real purpose of all this change has nothing to do with the aliens. It has absolutely nothing to do with the starships. What this has to do with us reawakening to who we are. That's what this is really all about. That's the real reason they're here, is to help us awaken so that we can change all of this, and none of this ever, ever, ever has to happen again. Not now, not ever. It's about us. This is about us. As a family, as a human race, as a collective consciousness, as a group of soul groups that chose to fall out of eternity into the concept of time, i.e. physicality. Contact is coming, no doubt about it. Revelations about our space fleet are coming. The technology that's been reverse engineered, it's coming. That's how we're going to pay for the space fleet. Okay? The costs are extraordinary to maintain something like this. This is where the $160 trillion no one knows is. That's where all this went to, was this space fleet, to create everything to make it work. And we will cover in a future webinar what's all entailed in that. I've been given a pretty good foundation of what that all looks like. The biggest surprise, the biggest revelation is going to be who you are, who I am, who we are to each other. That's the biggest thing. But to pay for these programs, to pay, as long as we continue to use a currency system, in order to finance all these changes, the technology that's been locked away in these black budget programs, that's been reverse engineered, that's in our space fleet, Space Force, the commercialization of that technology to humanity is how we're going to pay for this and how we're going to repair the Earth with assistance from benevolent groups. But we have to take control, all right? They're not going to come in and fix it all for us and just say, okay, here you go. It's brand new. See ya. That's not what's going to happen. Humanity is going to have to engage. And what I mean by that is we're going to have to get past prejudice, racial prejudice, religious dogma, political dogma. We are going to have to come to a place where we can all agree that the single most important thing is the advancement and the forward movement of humanity. It's not enough to be right anymore. Okay, you can be right and destroy other nations, and you haven't gained a thing. In fact, you've actually lost. We have to understand that to star nations, when they look at Earth, they see one tribe, one race. Doesn't matter the color of our skins, none of that matters. Doesn't matter our language. They see one tribe that can't get its shit together, that is wasting its time fighting and arguing over the dumbest things they could possibly imagine. Okay? When the most important thing is right in front of them. And that's brotherhood. That's brotherhood. Taking care of each other, seeing each other as family, watching each other's back, learning how to live in harmony together on this incredible place, this incredible planet. Okay? That's why the breakaways of civilization isn't going anywhere. Because if you don't take care of your own home or each other, why the hell would they let us go anywhere else? Not gonna happen. They may have explored, but they had to come back. They did, they had to come back. Because they don't take care of themselves, of their home. They're not gonna let us do this, okay? The Orion Wars taught the galaxy a huge lesson. And they just don't let any star nation, any advancing civilization, there's just no more irresponsibility. It doesn't work. Because what happens is these other star nations have to clean up the mess. So they've decided through the many different councils that they have, they've all agreed on rules and protocols of advancing nations. And that is, before you go anywhere to truly colonize anywhere, you clean up your house first. You have it together first. That's where we're at. And when they show up and they begin telling us not only our history, but they're also going to be laying out these protocols. And they're going to make perfect sense. They really are. But before we can do anything, go anywhere, we're going to have to implement those protocols here with each other. Now, let's talk about God for a minute. Creator, Great Spirit. Extraterrestrials are not gods. They're not gods. They never were. Won't be. may be God-like, but they're not God. They're not creator. And there are races, some races, that have chosen to not believe in a creative source. And there are most nations that understand that there is something, there is a force of some type. Because all of creation, all of physicality started somewhere. And they didn't do it. Something else did. Okay? The space in which our universe exists had to be created in the first place. And if it wasn't by creator, and it was the Batal, let's just hypothetically say the Batal. Well, who created the Batal? There had to be a single source of creation somewhere along the way, to however far back it goes. There had to be a single source of creation. And that source still lives, still exists. And all of us, every galaxy, every universe that exists, every living thing, and that's everything in it, is a living organism. It's alive. Everything is alive. And that is a real basic fundamental shift we here on Earth have to begin to look at. Humanity is part of a living organism. The Earth is part of us. We are part of her. Our solar system is a living organism. The moons, the planets, the asteroids, everything is alive. And it's all a part of us. It's an extension of us. That opens up not only one's perspective to how vast and how limitless all potential is, but the amount of compassion, the opening of your heart, when you truly grasp your own magnificence and where you are right now, is staggering. It's absolutely staggering. And for those of you who already had it, or have already had that moment, that epiphany, you know what I'm talking about. There just are no words, but you're never the same after you've had that moment or moments. You're never the same. Because you connect not only to all that is, but you connect to yourself that's multidimensional. You become a lightning rod that spans the dimensions. That's where we're going. That's what this is all about. For those of you who are Batal, that moment where your heart completely opens and you connect to all of your dimensional selves and to Source, Creator, Great Spirit, whatever word you want to use for that personal expression that you have for God. When you connect to that, you not only change yourself, but you realign everything and everyone that you know or have known. You realign everything. It's coming. It's coming. And for those of us who are aware, you're going to have to help. We are going to have to help those who have those moments. It's going to be a lot of young people. I know many young people seem hopeless at this point. Okay. But they're really not. They're really not. They are the source of profound change. And for those of us who are vintage, our role is to guide and assist, okay, to ground those folks. And now there's a lot of talk about the event. About the star, about our sun, sending out this light, this pulse. I don't know that that's how this is going to happen. I really don't. Because the sun, its energy is multidimensional as well. Our sun exists in fourth density. Our sun exists in fifth density. Okay? It has an extension of itself in a higher dimension, just like you do. So I'm not convinced that's how it's all going to occur. And why would it just be our solar system and not the entire universe? Everything that's third density, which is what has been implied ever since I was a little boy, meeting with Mornay and Visayas, is that third density would be imploding and we would be moving into fourth. And many of us, when we moved into fourth, would very quickly be moving into fifth. Not everyone, but a significant amount of souls, soul groups. As third density implodes into fourth, many of us, the soul groups, would migrate very quickly into fifth. I know that's for some a very difficult concept to grasp, but understand this. When you have an out-of-body experience, or you are out of your body and you're dreaming, and you know that you're dreaming, and you can control your movements in the dream, and you're aware of it, you're already in fourth density. Just in case you didn't know that. You are already in fourth density. Okay? That's what it is. To many of the ancients, to many of the people who have had near-death experiences, they refer to that as heaven. Many of them do, because that's what it feels like to them. It's an extraordinary time to be here. It is not an accident that you're here. I would ask that you embrace this. I get so many emails. I can't get to all of them, but I get so many from young people who just don't want to be here. And you know, they haven't had a hard time at all. They really haven't. Many of them have not. They just don't want to be here. And I get that, because I've had those moments myself in this lifetime. but there's no growth when you quit. There's just no growth. And this isn't about quitting. This is about seeing the mission through. And every one of us who's here has chosen to be here. Okay, no one's getting off scot-free. Not meaning to quote Q. This is a profound thing that's occurring. And I want to remind you, all of you, that when the starships show up and we start hearing about the aliens, at some point we begin to see them, they are not gods. You've got to remember this. They're not gods. Just because they're here physically from fourth density and or fifth, you have to remember that there's a portion of you that is probably already there on fourth, fifth, or sixth, or seventh. And for those of you who are new and you're like, well, how do you know? Again, I would reference you, if you're here for the first time, to research the Blue Brain Project, where they now know for a fact that our brains are wired for 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th density. Our brains are already wired to see and experience those dimensions. Okay, that is not an accident. Nature doesn't make those kind of mistakes. There is a reason and a purpose for that. And that's because there is so much more to you than you realize. It's just stunning. And I would ask you to embrace that. Because things are changing. The Earth is changing, our solar system is changing, the sun is changing, many, many, many things are changing. The aliens who are here, they're going through changes. It isn't business as usual for anybody. This is a shift of consciousness that is affecting everything in our universe. The solar system stuff is incredibly interesting. The reality of what our planets are made up of and their history is fascinating. The history of where all the different races came from on our planet is fascinating and very, very interesting. But at the end of the day, whatever day that is, at the end of the day, at the end of the moment where third density flips into fourth, all that's really going to matter is how much you love yourself and how much you love your family, humanity. That's what's going to matter. That's the litmus test. Okay? What's the old saying? It is not how much you love others, but how much you are loved by others. Okay? I know it sounds like you have to love yourself in order to love someone else. Truly. It's all related. It's all interlinked. And for me to love you, I have to love myself, and vice versa. And many of the things that we allow to upset us and piss us off, in the grand scheme of things, they are just so stupid. They really are. They really are. The petty things. Okay. I wanted to add this. I have a note here, Noah's Ark. We talked about Noah's Ark um, a couple of webinars ago, and I told you that I had been told that there were 3 arks. Isn't it interesting they have found 2 now? 2 arks. They still haven't found the 3rd. I don't know where it is myself, but I would suspect that that's not far off, that they'll find the 3rd one. Understand that the Sumerian and the Chaldean history that was passed down to us, which many consider myth or legend, those rewriting those histories condensed a lot of information to keep it real simple. And which is why we are often surprised by history and archaeological finds of things that make absolutely no sense. And that's because we've been spoon-fed little tiny bits of information that they felt they had to tell people. So, JP, are you there?
Alex.
Hey, there you are.
Okay, let me just round up the questions here. From, there's a challenging name, Jirki Piari. I've understood that the inclination or tilt angle of Earth's rotational axis is changing. Can you please give us some specifics? How much has it already changed and to which direction? Have you any idea how far it will go?
Our
The days
physical
are very short in the northern hemisphere. Is it going to get shorter or longer?
Our physical North Pole is moving to Siberia. The magnetic pole is rotating, wobbling, okay? My understanding is that the pole shift will be anywhere between 23.4 degrees and 28.3. Now that, on the surface, is significant. But my understanding is that they're allowing it to occur very, very slowly and gradually so that the oceans do not leave their beds. Now, what would really change that is if the rotation of the Earth on its axis were to slow down significantly. If it were to slow down significantly, the Earth's rotation, all the water that is at the equator would be displaced. That would cause massive flooding of every coastline on the planet, significantly changing the Earth. And that's not to say that some of that isn't going to occur. You know, with so much intervention on so many levels, it's extremely difficult to know exactly how things are going to play out, especially when we, the inhabitants of this world, are not really participating in the decision-making or the creation of our future. By surrendering our sovereignty, by giving away our free will and surrendering our sovereignty, our self-knowing, we have given the creation of our future, we have put the creation of our future into the hands of other beings. And as we're finding out now, those beings, many of those beings, at least here in the governmental or a religious structure of our planet, really never had the best interest of humanity at heart. To them, it was really all about power. Power over, and that's what it was for them. We fell for the story. Now that people are beginning to wake up and they are withdrawing their energy away from these groups and no longer participating, we begin now to project what it is that we as individuals want. Maybe at some point down the road, we will be able to thank them for giving us the contrast that we needed to wake up. Because when you finally realize you don't want this, you wake up, you begin to back out, you begin to move away from what it is that you don't want. And at that point, you regroup and you have to make a choice or a decision about what it is that you do want. And then you move in that direction because your focus, your intent moves in that direction of what it is that you do want. But unless you know what you want, I think we're all pretty easy to be controlled and manipulated. At least that's what the record shows. So to answer your question, as far as the earth changes, I've shared everything that I've been told. But, and I say this with as much clarity as I can, we're the ones, humanity, we are the ones that have to have the say as to what it is that we want. You know, back in the 90s when I first started talking about the A's, I talked about the idea that one of the issues that they had was how do they help us and at the same time self-empower all of humanity to step into their own power. Because that's what you have to do. We have to become a race of leaders. That means we all have to be self-empowered. That's tricky, especially when you're trying to help free a civilization from the grips of a coma that humanity's been under for thousands and thousands of years. Because you want to help, but at the same time, you don't want to look like a savior. What you want to do is empower and teach empowerment so that at some point, this race, our civilization, will be able to stand up on its own and say, thank you, we got it. We got it from here. That's what you want. That's what makes this a success, is that moment where we can all be together and say, okay, we got this. It's just getting us from where we are or have been to that place. I think it's pretty tricky. And I think it's a moving target. And I think they have had to constantly adjust their plan to accommodate our moving forward and then falling back, moving forward and falling back. And having the patience, you know, to allow us those moments. You know, like a parent, you know, it's just like a parent, you know, your kids, your babies, they stand up and they learn to walk, and you know they're going to fall down and they're going to fall flat on their face or on their bum, you know, and they're going to cry. And you know, you want to help, but at the same time, you want to help, but you want them to be able to learn to do this for themselves and to be confident so that when they go out into the world, they're independent, they're strong, they're functioning at their highest level. At least that's what we all want. You know, we want them to be better or more than we are. And we know that intuitively. And that's the law of consistency. which the rest of the universe practices. That the younger generations know everything the older generations knew and more. And there is absolutely no apprehension whatsoever about teaching the younger generations what we know, because they inherit the future. They carry on. They move forward, even after we leave these bodies and either come back or go somewhere else. That's the law of consistency. That's how this works. You know, but this coma that we've all been in for so long has made us all so afraid of everything. It's just crazy. So I answered your question and then some. I'm sorry. I went on a bit of a rant there. Okay, JP.
Opal is asking, hello, what can you tell us about people with green eyes?
Nothing. I don't know anything significant about that, other than they're usually very beautiful eyes.
Okay.
So,
From Carol, why are we mind wiped lifetime after lifetime, and will this change ever?
Carol, that's a good question. I believe that's all been part of the processing to keep us stuck here on Earth and incarnating back into the system and using our light and using our intentional focus to create and manifest physicality to meet the ends of the controllers that were in control of this planet and or third density. I can only speak for myself, but had I been aware of all of my options when I cross over, had I been aware of my multidimensionality previous to this, in the last 62,000 years I've been stuck on Earth, I'd be on a beach in another solar system. Yes, I would. Yeah. Uh-huh. I'd be beaching it. I'd have been out of here. So I think at some point we will, all of us, all of the soul groups that are not only here on Earth, but maybe in other areas of third density in our galaxy and in our universe. I think we're going to have those answers. I think we're going to get that aha moment where we're going to understand that maybe it was all part of the plan. And there was some grand experiment going on, at least I hope so. But if you were going to wipe someone's mind, it was because you wanted to make sure you had control. It's pretty obvious to me. Because if you had someone who was self-empowered and they were truly with the program and they agreed with the program that was going on or going down, you wouldn't have to wipe their mind. Okay? You wouldn't have to. They'd be willing participants. But that's not what's happened here, is it? So that's what I got.
All right. From the reincarnation to the holographic camera. Lauren is asking, is the holographic camera able to help with mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and PTSD? What about developmental disorders like fetal alcohol syndrome?
I don't know. I would think yes. I would think it absolutely would. And if it's strictly physical, if it were just technology that would just fix the physical, then I would think that in conjunction with fixing the physical, there would be a very profound spiritual component to using this technology in the healing afterwards for issues like that. Because it's a great question. It's not enough just to fix the physical. It's to bring clarity and understanding. It's about creating balance, not only with the body, but also with the mind and the soul. I would think that all of those would be in conjunction together.
Cliff is asking, is the human preoccupation with sex for pleasure and pair bonding considered one of the reasons Earth has stayed at a lower vibration for so long from the Andromedan's perspective?
No. The answer to that is no. Their perspective is their perspective. Their decision as a soul group, as a race, to only partake of that interaction, that ritual of bonding for the creation of life, was a decision that they as a race made. Okay? That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. There are other races that I understand, both fourth and fifth, that experience sex for the pleasure of it. However, there is always a spiritual component to it. And they understand that when a man drops his seed into a woman, his DNA, her body absorbs the DNA. She is not the same woman or the same person. She takes on the man's DNA. And vice versa. I'm not going to get graphic here, obviously. Otherwise, we'll get an R rating on this one. But the commingling of our bodies changes both people. Not to mention the DNA factor, but also the energy. Okay, you're putting your energy, our energies, into each other. There needs to be a spiritual component to this. It shouldn't just be, and again, this is, my perspective being a vintage human being here. It shouldn't be just about the physical, because it's not. Okay, you give a part of yourself away every time you have intercourse. You do. It should be a sacred thing. It should be something you seriously think about when you engage in this. Okay, because you are a spiritual being, you are a multi-dimensional being that is connected to Source. Okay, you're a conduit. You're a conduit to all that is. And that deserves reverence. It do, and that's just how I see it. That's not to say you shouldn't enjoy sex. Just be intentional approach it, if you can, from a higher place than just your root. And that goes for both men and women. Okay? Because you give a part of yourself away. And that deserves recognition. That's all I got.
Okay, talking of DNA, are feline, from Cynthia, are feline beings one of the 22?
I don't think so, because I don't know who they are exactly. I am aware that there are races that have a physiological condition that can make them look feline-like. It's not something we have on Earth, per se, this physiological condition. But I know it exists out there. But I don't know if that is specific to one or many races or just pockets of groups within other races. I just simply don't have that answer, other than what I've just shared with you. I don't know that it represents an entire race. I don't know that it does. I just don't have that piece.
Okay, from Cygnus and supported by others. On November the 11th, there was a wave that pulsed across Earth and was recorded. I don't know its nature. Do you have comments on that? Do you have anything on that?
No, I'm aware of it. I don't know where it came from. I don't know yet. I have a very long list of questions. I don't always get to them. So, but I don't know where that wave came from. I felt it was positive. I also felt like it was very grounding, that whatever it represented, it locked some things very solid, very real in place. That's my overall take of it, after having experienced it myself. That's all I got.
Okay. From Opal, hello. There are rumors that the Californian fires were caused by microwave lasers from government aircraft. Do you have any information concerning that? If so, is Oregon a safer place to live?
I have seen some of the photographs. I've seen some of the vehicles that have laser holes burned through the hoods and the motors. I've also seen the video of the helicopters dropping fire from a hose. Do I think that was all very suspicious? I absolutely do. Do I know the culprits or the real cause or decisions that were made to do that? No, I don't. Do I think that the act of doing such a thing was despicable? I absolutely do. California is an incredibly beautiful state. Tremendous diversity. I think its politics are insanity. I just do. But as far as a representative of of a place to live in Earth. I remember the first time that I saw it, I was in absolute awe. And I could understand why all the hippies wanted to go there, and the mamas and the papas and the Beach Boys. They wrote all these songs about California. I totally got it because it was an extraordinary place. And it's still an extraordinary place. It's just, there's so much diversity in landscape. What I think happened there was despicable. But the Earth knows how to repair herself. And she will. She will. What we need to get to the bottom of it is who did it, why, and they need to be punished, jailed, or taken out. It's just not okay. A lot of people lost their lives. It was just not okay. And it'll never be okay to do such a thing for malice, because of malice. But I don't have any hard answers as to who, what, when, and where, and why. I don't have any of that. I think eventually it will come out, because they left a trail of video and evidence behind them. They were very careless in that respect. So I think whoever perpetrated such a despicable act will be caught. It's only a matter of time.
From Pilotac. Hi, Alex. Thank you for this wonderful webinar. Question is Morina your only contact person, or are there any other Zenitaians that answer your questions here? And likewise, are there any other Andromedans on Earth? That's another question.
Yes, Morine is my only contact. I used to have Visayas, but he's no longer in physicality. M is my only contact, other than his crew, but my relationship with them is not at all what it is with him, nor do I expect it to be. There were originally 4 of us that Morine or the A's were talking to. It's now down to 2. The second person that I'm aware of is in South America that is still talking, but I'm not aware that they've come forward yet. There's still a great deal of apprehension and fear concerning physical safety, which is a bona fide, very, very bona fide concern. I think it's getting better, but 10, 15, 20 years ago, it sucked. It did. It sucked. There's just no other word for it. You were going to get the shit kicked out of you no matter what you did. So, but I think it's getting better. And it's getting better because more and more people are waking up and more people are having their own experiences. And whether they decide to go public with it or not, they are talking to family and friends. And that's huge. That's huge. The stigma that it used to carry is going away, and that's extremely positive. That's extremely positive because there's just so much we can all learn from each other that isn't being shared. And that in itself is a tragedy. So it's all good. It's going to be okay. It is in the long run. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to come together, and all the broken pieces are going to find their way home. They always do.
Okay, Penny is asking, in a recent webinar, you commented that reincarnation has ended and all the souls that are alive now that have been alive or alive now. So how does that affect people who are dying every day, or the babies being born all the time?
I don't know, Penny. I don't know. You know, in order to answer that question, I would have to know everybody's individual plan, or what their specific agenda is for, if they are reincarnating or wanting to come back, what their sole purpose is. I'm still working on my own. Okay, I don't even know how to address that question. I don't know that even them would know that, because there's just, there's 8 billion people here. Maybe some want to come back just to say hello and then goodbye. I don't know. I just don't know. It's a good question though, but I just don't know.
All right, so here's quite a serious question. Some of the whistleblowers of the secret space program have stated that they engaged in human slavery and trafficking for the purpose of providing labor, food, and amusement to other star nations. How can we trust this breakaway space fleet to come here and help with our awakening when they engage in gross psychopathic behavior? Thank you, and blessings to all of you.
You know what? That is a great question. And I've known about this, which is why I've touched on the Planetary series in the asteroid belt several times, because I know a lot of that was going on there, and it did for a time on Mars. I'm well aware of it, and even under the Earth. Here's my understanding of how this has been corrected. The Planetoid series was melted from the inside out. It's done, okay? And everyone who could be rescued was, and those who were beyond help were just put out of their misery so they could start over. But that place is done. Many of the Nazi elements that were part of this component have been separated. Many of the dark CIA components of this have also been separated. I can tell you unequivocally and with absolute confidence, but this is me, just me. Those elements are being dealt with harshly, severely, if they even still exist at all. If they still exist at all. The components and elements that are in play now for the benefit of humanity truly have the benefit and the will to help humanity. They've always had it, but they were controlled and being manipulated by another source more powerful than they were. That component has been removed. So now everyone is free to act on their true instincts and their true inclination. It is not business as usual. There is a spiritual component to this that is not going to be undermined. It is positive. It is full of love and compassion, and it's about integrating Earth's races with the galactic family. That's what it's about. And they are not going to embrace us or even go to the trouble of doing this if that shit's still happening. So that shit had to be taken care of. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing the component of that we do know about here on Earth, human trafficking and pedophilia. You know that's being dealt with. Heads are coming off. People are being arrested. People are being exposed for that shit. That's being dealt with on this level. That frequency is no longer ever going to be tolerated, because the spiritual frequency, the component of compassion and love, is now far stronger than that field of energy. And that field of energy is swallowing itself now. It is beginning to feed off itself because it has no one left to feed off of. Okay? There are no more innocents being fed to these. Okay. Thanks. Yes, ma'am. Crap. I gotta go. That energy is feeding off itself because it's totally on its own. And that's what happens to the dark. When it can't feed off the light, it implodes on itself, which is totally appropriate, because then they take themselves out.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you found it insightful, please like the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future updates. If you have any questions relating to today's video, please also leave them below. We read all the comments and take on board what our viewers have to say about Alex Collier's work. Remember, your support helps Alex Collier's knowledge and the messages from the Andromedans reach more people. If you'd like to support the channel even more, you can give us a super thanks tip by clicking the heart icon with a $sign. It really helps our team bring you more content. Also, be sure to visit alexcollier.org to sign up for our regular email newsletter. It's the best way to stay updated with the latest news, exclusive content, and upcoming live webinars. For the latest insights from Alex Collier, check out alexcollier.live. And if you want to explore over 250 past webinars, head over to alexcollier.tv. Thank you for being a part of this journey and supporting Alex Collier's work. We couldn't do this without you, and we're genuinely grateful for your support. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the vast mysteries of our universe. If you would like to see the Andromedan contactee Alex Collier live via video stream, we hold a live online seminar every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information on upcoming live webinars, please visit alexcollier.org.